Hello and welcome to the Money Marketing Podcast. I'm Katie Pigden, the editor of the publication. I'm delighted you can join us for today's episode, which forms part of a special series with financial planner Chanelle Pattinson. Last year, Chanelle launched her own podcast, Her Future Bright, in which she interviews inspiring women in financial services. Money Marketing is proud to have partnered with Chanelle for the second series. Each week, Chanelle will be finding out about her guests' careers, their achievements, and how they are bringing the profession forward. As Money Marketing's strapline proudly states, financial advice matters. We want to show the world of advice can be a fulfilling career choice. For any aspiring planners and advisors listening, we hope this series helps you make the leap. And if you're looking for more information, visit our Financial Advisor to Be resource on the Money Marketing website. Now it's over to you, Chanelle.
Hey everyone, I'm Chanelle Pattinson and this is the Her Future Bright podcast, where I interview inspiring women in finance. We talk about their careers, their achievements and how they are bringing our profession forward. On today's show, we have Eleanor Eason. Hey Eleanor, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Yes, I am very good, thank you. Okay, so for anyone who doesn't know, Eleanor is a portfolio manager for a UK bank and also runs a brilliant Instagram page, Square Mile, which is dedicated to making money management simple. So to start things off, could you please tell us a bit more about your career so far?
Yes, of course. So I probably didn't take the most conventional career route, but it worked for me. It was a little bit zigzaggy, but I'm kind of where I want to be now, so I'm happy with it. But I started as a dancer. I trained kind of every day at school. I never really thought that I would do something academic with my life. I always thought that I would go into dancing. So when I got injured and had to kind of reconsider my career, I was a little bit thrown, to be honest. I had no idea what I was going to do with myself. I was very fortunate in the fact my mum and dad had always really pushed me to finish school. I wanted to leave at 16 and I wanted to go to dance college, but they told me to do my A-levels just in case anything was to happen. Well, I got injured at 18, so thank goodness I had my A-levels. I had really enjoyed economics at school. I had a wonderful teacher. She was very inspiring, broke everything down, and was all about kind of girl power. And girls can go into economics, girls can go into banking. It doesn't matter that you're a girl. And so I kind of fell in love with the subject. I suddenly thought, okay, well, I like this. I like economics. Maybe I could go to uni and study this, but the rest of my A-levels were not appropriate. So I had to kind of take myself off for a year and teach myself 2 more A-levels to get into a uni to study economics. So I taught myself maths and psychology in a year. Would not recommend, but I got through it. And went to Bath University to study economics. Now, economics was very different at university than what my A-level had been. It was very mathematical. It was a very male-heavy course. And everyone seemed to know what they were going to do. They all had parents in investment banking, private equity. I didn't even know what these meant. So I was very, very confused at university and basically was there to join the cheerleading squad, join the dance squad, and hopefully get a degree at the end of it, which I did. But within that, they made us do, well, they didn't make us, they encouraged us to do a year in industry. So you had to go out, find a year internship, and then you came back for your final year. I almost didn't do this, and I am so glad I did, and so glad that I listened to people that said it's such a good idea. And so I was really lucky, and I got an internship at the Bank of England, which, for those of you that don't know, is the UK central bank. And I was on the team that helped kind of bail out banks during the latter end of the financial crisis. So it was very exciting, very interesting, and I basically fell in love with the city. And I didn't even know the City of London, that the banking sector really existed before this. And I just absolutely adored everything about it. I loved the fast pace. I loved getting dressed up for work. I just loved learning from everyone around me. And I kind of then knew that that's what I wanted to go into. I finished my year internship and went back to university to do my final year, graduated, and that was economics done for me. And I was very happy. I got a 2-1. It was fine. I then kind of didn't really know what I was going to do again with my job. A lot of people had graduate jobs lined up, which made me feel like a bit of a failure. But Bank of England didn't offer graduate jobs from their internship. It just was a rule they had. So I kind of didn't really know where I was going to go. I got offered a job in a completely different sector from a lady that I used to work with. And so I got a job at Victoria's Secrets, which I'm sure you all know is an underwear company, very different to the Bank of England. But the job was very, very similar. It was an analyst role. I had to work with a lot of numbers. I managed massive spreadsheets, but it was also a client-facing role. So I went and visited all our clients and franchise partners out in Europe, and kind of learned that I liked numbers, but also liked people. So although I was dealing with bras and panties, as they called them, I knew that this was something that I liked. What I didn't like about Victoria's Secrets was the numbers people were always against the fashion people, and I didn't like that clash. If the fashion people wanted something and the numbers people didn't really agree, it was just always a big clash, and it made me feel kind of like we were the bad guys, and I didn't like it. And I really missed the structure and the kind of feeling of working for a bank or a finance company in the city. So after 2 years at Victoria's Secrets, I left. I actually had my heart broken by a boy, silly boys, and decided that it was time to just change up a few things. So I quit my job at Victoria's Secrets, which was very hard to do because in 2 years I'd done very well and was very highly paid for someone of that age. But I had my heart broken, and what can you do? So I booked a one-way flight to Australia, as every sensible girl does, and had no idea what I was going to do. Just no idea. I landed in Sydney. My best friend, bless her, came along with me. And there we were, Sydney airport. We just kind of stood there with our huge backpacks on, like, woo, let's go.
Wow.
Yeah, so that was, I'd never been traveling. I'd never really been out of Europe. And I just was in Australia and thought, okay, let's have a go. Turns out I didn't really like traveling. I did it for about 3 weeks and I really missed having a job. So that was that. I got a job in Melbourne, which it was just a receptionist job at an architect firm. I have no clue on architecture, nothing at all. But within a few weeks of working on reception at this amazing, amazing firm, they kind of promoted me to analyst, back office. And again, I was back doing numbers for them. Worked for them for a year, got introduced to the world of private banking and finance through the kind of big dogs at this firm. And they kind of said, I think you'd be really good at this. Have you ever considered it as a career? I thought, no, I don't even know what a private bank is. So I looked into it. I looked at banks in Australia and in England, but I decided I wanted to go back home. I was missing my family. I was missing my friends. And so I moved back to London. Then suddenly I realised I was 26 and a lot of grad schemes have an upper age limit, which I didn't know. So for the first time in my life, I felt old and like I couldn't apply to jobs I wanted. And there were 2 grad schemes that allowed me on at my old age of 26. And I applied for both of them and was lucky enough to get a place at both of them. They obviously started a year later. So I got myself a temp job at an asset management firm. And I don't care what people say. When people say like, oh no, when people think they're too good for a receptionist job or an assistant job, I learned the most I've ever learned in those 2 jobs. So being a receptionist and being an assistant at this asset management firm. And I had an absolute ball for a year. I learned so much. I worked for some incredible people. And actually leaving to go on to my grad scheme was very, very tricky. I'd got this job that I liked. I knew I could work my way up to being an analyst. I was well paid. I worked with some incredible people. And suddenly I was going to go into this scheme where I was going to be, I mean, you are, as grads, you're expected to do like everyone's work that they don't want to do. You're normally quite poorly paid because they're educating you and investing a lot into you. And it was a really hard decision to make. But I went with it. I said, no, I wanted to join a grad scheme. I needed to start from the beginning and really learn this niche subject from the bottom. And so I did. And And that's kind of what brought me to my job now. I rolled off the grad scheme quite quickly after about a year and a bit, into the team that I kind of fell in love with on the rotations. And then from that, I was an analyst for them. Again, I love being an analyst. And then got promoted to portfolio manager about a year and a half ago. So it was a very zigzaggy career. If I'd known what I wanted to do from the beginning, I could have done it in a year and a half and been a very young portfolio manager, but I didn't. I felt like I learned a lot doing all the little jobs that I did, and I've made some fantastic friends and connections along the way. So although it took me a little longer than most, I'm happy with it.
Yeah, amazing. So interesting. And I find that's what most people say, like they don't have an ideal. I know some do, like you said, I've got friends that parents maybe were doctors and they're like, I'm definitely going to be a doctor. But like me, I was like, I've got no idea. Tried a few different things. I was like, no, don't like that. And everyone's like, you're going to quit again. I was like, yeah.
And honestly, I do think that if you do a job that you don't like, you will never be hugely successful at it. Whereas if you do a job you love, I think you're naturally good at it. And you have to do it for a long time and a lot of hours of the day.
Yeah, it takes up so much of your life.
It does. So I wanted to find something I was good at and I enjoyed. It just took me about 8 years, but here we are.
No, amazing. And I'd love to sort of go back to when you got that graduate job. Like you said, it's sort of, with a graduate job, you're going to do well. They're investing a lot into you, but you do sort of start at the bottom. And like you said, in Victoria's Secret, you were earning good money and that kind of thing. So how did you deal with that? And sort of, have you got any tips for anyone that's sort of thinking about making that change? Because it's a scary thing to do.
It is. So my salary pretty much over halved. So I took about a 60% pay cut, which first of all is a lot of money to lose every month. I was lucky in the fact I didn't have a mortgage at that time. I wasn't paying huge amounts of rent, so I could manage it. With regards to the jobs and the roles, as a grad, you're expected to go where they tell you and do what they say. And that I found very difficult. I was very used to being autonomous and quite like entrepreneurial in my roles. Like I could come up with ideas. But as a grad, it was like, you will do this at this time to help out this people to learn this. So it was almost like you just had to swallow your pride. You had to just say, I need to do this. I need to get through this, be good at it, and hopefully come out the other end with the job I want. I had a fantastic group of grads I was on the scheme with. They were all probably 4 or 5 years younger than me. But I was never made to feel like the weirdo or the odd one out or the one that hadn't really found her way yet. And they're still, I count them as very good friends today. So I'm pleased I did it. It was just a learning curve. And don't get me wrong, I cried in the toilet sometimes. And sometimes I thought, is this the right decision? Have I done the right thing? But I had. It's worked out okay. And I'm so pleased I did it. I'm so thankful for all the money they invested in me, the exams they put me through. Honestly, I wouldn't be in the job I am today without it. So I can't fault them.
Yeah. And I find I speak to so many people and they all say about the people around them and like the teams they're in and how important that is. And it can make the biggest difference.
Such a difference. I've worked in jobs that I've kind of liked, but the people haven't been that great. And you just don't end up enjoying yourself. But you can be in the worst job. And believe me, as grads, we got put on some awful tasks. But we all just made it fun. We all laughed about it, and we all had a great time.
Amazing. No, it sounds it. And it sounds like it was definitely worth it. And we've chatted before that we both work in quite male-dominated roles. And I'm always the first to say, like, my dad's financial advisor, the men in this industry are great. But sometimes it's hard when you walk into a room and you are sort of the only woman or one of very, very few. So how have you dealt with that, really?
Very good question. I think it's changed hugely since I first started. My first job in the city, it feels like another world.
Really?
I was one of pretty much no girls. I remember I went to a talk with a senior female in the bank, and she was just that was her. And she kind of said, well, yes, I've got kids, but I also have 2 nannies and that's the only way you can do it. I remember thinking, oh my God, like I really do have to choose between kids and a career. That's okay. And just the way you were kind of treated as a girl, I often got asked when I went to a meeting, and this is even the same in my role at Victoria's Secret, so not like necessarily just banking. I had a male assistant, and I always, they addressed him and asked me to write notes or fetch the coffee without fail. So that's how it was about 5, 6, 8 years ago. Now it's a completely different story, I think. And also the bank I work for are so pro equality and getting females involved and helping females climb that career ladder. My team is very much male dominated, maybe about 80% men. They're all fantastic. They're all kind of veterans of the industry. I learned so much from them. I've learned along the way to not try and be a man. I used to try and do that when I first started. I thought to fit in, I have to be a boy. Now I've worked out that actually being a girl is pretty much a superpower in banking. I get very senior male colleagues come to me and say, I've got a client that's perfect for you. I think you'll be really good at them. And although I know that's also because of my technical knowledge, I know it's because I've probably got an empathetic side that a lot of the men don't have. So just use it to your advantage. Especially also like presenting at events. They want to present like a equal board or an equal panel, so you're more likely to get involved than maybe a guy, because they have to work harder to get seen. You're seen as soon as you walk into the room because it's just you. So I do think it's a positive being a girl at the moment. I think the industry has come a long way, and I hope it continues to move in this direction.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And it's like, the reason I do this is so that people, because sometimes it's not, like I found when I was younger, it wasn't my immediate thought to think I could work in banking, because you do see a lot of men, but that's just how it is. But hopefully listening to something like this, they're like, oh, I could do this job. Maybe I should look at this avenue, and actually it's really great and I really like it.
Definitely. I think it's such a good thing you're doing.
Thanks. Amazing. So you said you see the finance industry change, which I totally agree. And I think it's moving, I don't know what you think, but I think it's moving really quickly as well. And I think everyone's like picking up the pace, and a lot of people want to see this change. And I don't know how you feel, but in financial planning for me, there was sort of like a really big gap between the older generation and the younger generation coming in. So it feels like a lot of fresh blood. That sounds like such a strange saying, but like new blood, like the next generation are coming in. Do you see that sort of thing as well?
Definitely. So you see kind of at the graduate scheme level, they're really trying to employ 50-50 boys and girls. You see in promotion rounds and getting promoted, you can see that there's a lot more girls coming through. And I hope that really has been kind of a cultural shift. I know like back in, I don't know when this policy changed, but the maternity policy at my bank used to be, it was okay. It wasn't fantastic. It's now amazing. And that's been changed because of a few senior women saying, this needs to change for you to allow girls to be promoted. And I remember when I found out I was pregnant, I felt so nervous about telling my boss. I was like, oh my God, this is going to stop my career. I don't know what to do. Like, how do I spin this in a positive light? And he was just amazing. He was like, well, congratulations, fantastic news. We'll arrange some cover for you and see you in whenever you want to come back. So you have a choice when you want to come back. So I think little things like that, as well as employing and bringing in the younger generation, will make such a difference. Because I remember when I first started and you'd see people go on maternity leave and then they pretty much like either didn't come back or weren't welcome back, or their job wasn't really there. And it wasn't a pleasant thing to see. But now it's like, okay, yes, you're off to have a baby, so what? See you in a bit, congratulations.
Yeah, and I think like you mentioned earlier, it felt like, I know a few years ago when I started my career and I was so like, my career's my life, like, and I did sort of say to myself, okay, it's like career or kids, or I'm gonna at least have to put this on the back burner for quite a long time because it's gonna ruin my career basically. But I read Eleanor Morrissey's book, and I think she's got like 7 kids, and I was like, and in her book she writes so many times that like she's done so well and she has got so many kids, and I was like, oh, maybe I can. And then you hear stories like yours about the bank and changing their policies, and it's exciting. Like, it's really, really nice to hear.
It is. And like, newsflash, girls have babies. If you want the population to grow or continue, we have to procreate. So yes, I think it's about time that it starts being very normalized. we need to sort out this kind of childcare issues and all that, but that's a whole nother topic.
Yeah, absolutely. I won't go down that path because I'll go right down that path. But so amazing. The other thing you're passionate about is educating others on investments and are determined to close the many gender financial gaps that exist in the UK. So tell us a bit about what sparked this passion, or where it came from.
Yes, of course. So I set up Square Mile, my Instagram account, to try and kind of encourage girls to talk about money about a year and a bit ago. And it really stemmed from the fact that my parents worked very hard, but we never had that much money. And they won't mind me saying that. And I was very lucky to go to a very good school on a semi-funded place. So I was around a lot of people that had a lot of money from a background of not really much money. And I used to find that really very difficult. I also found the fact that money was never, ever spoken about. We went to one of the top girls' schools in the country, and I don't think it was ever mentioned, not once. So I remember thinking, okay, well, I've seen my parents struggle for a lot of years. I want to make sure I never struggle. And I remember writing down, I can't even remember how old I was, but my one wish was to, it sounds quite shallow now, not have to worry about the price tag or look at the bill so carefully. I wanted to just be comfortable and know that there was money in the bank.
Yeah.
So I knew that there was this kind of lack of education going on. And when I started working, my first job, I got a letter about the pension policy that they put me in. And I was like, what? I don't understand this. And I was working in finance in a bank, and I had no idea what a pension was really. I didn't know how I should manage it. I was like, no, knock that contribution right down. I want it right now. I saved up a lot of money, but in cash. I wasn't investing it. A lot of my uni friends or the boys at work would talk about these investments they were doing. I was like, I have no idea what they're really talking about, which is quite ironic considering my job now is to manage investments. But I just felt that it was a massive taboo. Me and my friends would talk about all sorts of things that I could never repeat in public, but we never ever spoke about our pension or what we were investing in or how we manage our money. And I just thought there was such a gap. And that when it became my job, and when I kind of had the confidence that I know what I'm talking about now, I'm qualified, it's my job, I just want to start talking about it. And if 2 people follow me, then 2 people follow me, and that's fine. But that means that 2 more people have kind of taken money management to the next level. And I've been so happy with how it's grown. I never expected it in kind of my wildest dreams, and full credit to my husband for forcing me to start it after talking about it for so many years. So I was just a bit too shy. But it's going very well. And I think I calculated the other day that based on the referrals to investment platforms, etc., that I've made, the minimum amount of money that would have been invested by my followers, and this is the minimum, like you have to invest £3 or you have to invest £100, would be £30,000. And I thought,
that's crazy.
That if I retire now and close my Instagram account, it's meant that £30,000 worth of girls' money has been invested that wouldn't have been. And that's just starting to close that gender investment gap. There's so many gaps in the UK, the gender pay gap, the gender investment gap, the gender pension gap. And I just used to read about them and be like, oh my God, why is nothing happening about this? And so I just thought, if I can start with just chatting to a few people on Instagram, I'm always very careful. I never do advice. I know what my job permits me to do, but just making it a talking subject makes me happy. And I have my WhatsApp groups with my best girlfriends. And the other day we spent all evening chatting about pensions just because of a post I did on Instagram. And that made me so happy, like actually made me a bit emotional, because my 2 best friends are very successful. They're going to be very successful, but they had never really looked at their pension because they're not in an industry that would kind of tell them to. They do very different industry careers to myself. And suddenly they've upped their pension contributions. They've had a look at what they're investing in. They know what their pension is doing and how much they're expecting to retire on. Before that, clueless, which is it's fine. But if everyone was having those conversations on WhatsApp, along with discussing the new Netflix series, new makeup, whatever, we'd make such a difference.
100%. And I think it also gives us some security. Like when you look at figures, men check their pensions a lot more than us. They put a lot more in, they have a much bigger pot. And then if, say, we do get divorced or life takes us in a different way, it puts us on the back foot because we don't have as much. So, and like you said, they have these conversations, men do all the time. They talk to their friends about cryptocurrency and
all the time
and selling. But
they never talk about their losses, by the way.
I can imagine. But we never have those conversations. But I say we never. You see it so much more now with pages like yours, and there's so much more out there that's starting these conversations and creating these conversations, which is amazing. So, and like you said, the £30,000, was it £30,000 minimum?
Yeah,
that's crazy. So sort of where else has the page taken you? Sort of what has the outcome been apart from that?
So it started very much as kind of like I wanted to do a bit of workwear and a bit of finance. I used to love getting dressed up for work, not so much now, I'm 8 months pregnant, but I used to love getting dressed up for the office. So I used to just post what I was kind of wearing, plus a few like money management tips. But kind of over probably about the last 6 months, there's been a lot of opportunities that have been presented to me that really require it to be just 100% financial page. So I've thought, yes, I'm just going to separate them. This Square Mile will be 100% financial. And then I'll have kind of my personal accounts for not even really going to be workwear anymore because it's going to be maternity leave stuff, but it's just my personal life. And I really use it as a kind of brain dump, my personal page, just to kind of empty my thoughts out. But Square Mile is going to be 100% financial. We have some really exciting partnerships in the new year coming up. I've been talking to a couple of, I want to say press people, but that's the wrong word, about kind of columns to get that like out in the open, to get money management in the kind of mainstream press. I'm working on a couple of products that will be released to help you really manage your money. So that's really my goal. I also have to be mindful that I have a newborn baby coming and that is going to be a challenge in itself. So I'm trying to kind of pace myself and work out what's achievable. But I'm very, very excited for where it's going. And yeah, I hope you continue to follow.
Yeah, no, that sounds really exciting. I'm so excited to see what else comes out of it. And I also do love your personal page. I saw you posted the other day about your dog, and I love that. I think you put, he is really naughty, but like he's amazing. And it really made me laugh because it's so like the story of my life. Like literally shoes gone, toilet roll shredded with my spaniel. And but I love him so much. It just really tickled me how you put it.
No, he's very, very naughty, but I just love him so much. So he can stay that way.
Yeah, I completely relate. Amazing. So that sounds very exciting. And I will leave a link to it in the notes below, but everyone go and have a look because it's great as it is, but it sounds like there's going to be a lot of very exciting stuff coming on Square Mile. So amazing. The next question would be, what would you say is the most important lesson that you have learned in your career so far?
Gosh, there's been quite a few. And don't get me wrong, if you're just starting your career at the moment, be prepared to make mistakes because you will. I have made some savage mistakes in my time. And I look back now and I shudder and it wakes me up at 3 a.m. going, oh God, no. But I mean, I've made technical mistakes where you've transferred money to the wrong person. People make mistakes. So always own up to them and just say, how can I correct this? What can I do? But with regards to kind of just more general career advice, someone said to me really early on, always say yes. And I kind of took that from me. Whenever you get presented with a task or a job or something you're not that sure of, so give it a go. You'll be so surprised. And I really stuck by that. And actually some of the jobs that maybe on paper don't look fantastic have really led me to good places, or I've learned a lot. And they've done wonders for me. So I've always tried to have that yes mentality. The other few tips I'd probably have is dress for the job you want, not the job you have. A lady at Victoria's Secrets told me that, and she said, dress like the boss and people will treat you like the boss. And I really tried to take that with me. So something so silly is dressing. And I hate the fact it's still different between men and girls, but men wear suits in a financial institution most of the time, and they all look the same. Girls, we have so much more flexibility, which is fab. We can be a lot more creative, but it means you're open to criticism and it means you're open to comments. And I vowed that I will never have someone mention what I was wearing before they mentioned my skill sets. So I always said that I will dress appropriately, I will dress powerfully. It doesn't matter what you see as appropriate, but I always felt that I would have my chest covered, I would wear a respectable length skirt or trousers. And so people could never comment on what I was wearing. They could only comment on what a good job I'd done. And so that was probably my second bit of advice or career mantra I've tried to stick to. And then the third and final one would be, this is probably a bit silly, limit the drinking with colleagues. I was told that you never see the CEO drunk in the pub with all your colleagues. So if you aspire to be the CEO, don't do it. Obviously, the drinking and like socializing is part of the job, but like there's a line and there's a respectable line, and I've always tried to stick to that. So they're kind of three nuggets that I've always lived by. Probably not the most technical or professional, but they've done me okay.
Yeah, no, I love them. Definitely the yes one. I totally agree with that one. Like, I've had a few things this year, like speaking on a panel, stuff like that, and they've asked me, and immediately I thought, absolutely not. That is the scariest thing. But like you said, I thought, no, I'm going to say yes. I'm going to try it. What's the worst that can happen? And don't get me wrong, it was really scary. But once you've done it, you're like, I did that. And then it opens up the doors. You meet people. It just opens you up to so much more. And I totally agree with dressing for the job. And I think that's really interesting what you said about the CEOs. You never see them drunk. It's so true. And I've never thought of that or heard that. It's so true.
The example this lady gave to me, she said, if you want to progress and manage people, you might be at the pub with people you are going to manage. She said, they're not going to take you seriously if they've had to hold your hair back in the bathroom.
So
Which
true.
I fully have lived by. And it's 100% true. If you want respect in the workplace, you have to be respectable out of the workplace.
Completely agree. Absolutely. And what would you say has been the biggest obstacle in your career so far?
100% confidence. I really suffered with anxiety and have done for years. And I'm quite open about it with friends and family and on my Instagram page. I really was suffering back at Victoria's Secrets to the point where I couldn't cross a bridge because I thought it would get blown up. I couldn't go on the tube. It was all around the time of the 7/7 bombings. Coming into work, I was so scared of going up to the high-rise building that I'd stand outside shivering, shaking, just so petrified of going in. And that then kind of progressed into kind of job anxiety. Just, am I good enough? Is everyone laughing at me? Does everyone hate me? And I was just crippled with it, absolutely crippled. I wasn't sleeping. I didn't eat. And eventually I kind of thought, I need to get help if this is going to be manageable. And kind of did CBT, tried a couple of different medications to help me get to a level which was seen as normal. My doctor described it as, your brain is wired a bit differently. This medication will help get you to a normal brain, and then you can start tackling tasks that normal people find okay. And I kind of took comfort in that and felt, well, I shouldn't be embarrassed by this. And then as my anxiety's got a lot better and I've got a lot better at managing it, there's still those times, a bit like you say, when you're asked about appearing in a panel or talking at something where you're like, is everyone laughing at me? Am I going to be laughed at? Or are people, do I have something in my teeth? Just silly things. And I actually went for the portfolio manager job. I wasn't ready. I knew I wasn't ready. I was having panic attacks leading up to this interview. And I went for this interview and I didn't get it. A guy who's fantastic got it over me. And I remember being so upset and hurt. My husband, then boyfriend, was like, but you knew you weren't ready. You went for it to show willing. And I was like, but everyone's gonna be laughing at me. I've said I wanted to do this. And he was like, no, they won't. No one cares. And it's sometimes, I know I said, I try and not be a man. Sometimes you have to think like a bloke. I don't want to make gender stereotypes, but my husband doesn't really consider what people are going to think. He just goes and does the best he can and just goes for it. And I've tried to kind of adopt that mentality slightly. But yeah, my biggest obstacle has been confidence and anxiety.
Yeah, no, I can completely relate to that. I have experienced the exact same things. I went for CBT therapy, and it always makes me laugh because I remember sitting there and they said, right, so why won't you get on the train? I'm like, because I'm going to die. And then they're looking at me and they're like, is that a rational answer? I was like, yeah.
Yes.
Like, it just always makes me laugh. And I just remember them looking at me. They're like, looking at me like, Chanelle, that's not the right answer. It's not rational. But in my head, I was like, no, that's completely rational. And I can control it much better now. And I suppose retrained my brain. But I still, like, we went to London a couple of weeks ago and went up the Shard, and my first initial thought when I was laying in the bed was, if there's a fire, I can't get out of here because we are 50 floors up. And that's all I could think about. And I thought, 100%. And I had all these, could I get out the window? No. And in the end I had to tell my brain, okay, either you're staying here tonight or you're not. If you're going to stay here, you need to just put it to one side and go to sleep. And eventually I did. But yeah, I'm exactly the same. When I went up on that stage, I was like, everyone's looking at me. Obviously they are, I'm sat on the stage, but everyone's thinking you're too young to be sat there. Like, why are you sat there? And it's just, it is hard. But I think by every time you do one, I think you do feel better and you do feel more confident. And I do think it's still going to be scary every time, but I think it does get better the more you do it. And I think about maybe accepting those thoughts and going with it.
I agree. And I also think surrounding yourself with almost like little cheerleaders. So my manager I think he's the best man ever. He's so fantastic. And I'll say to him, oh no, I can't do that. Ooh. And he's like, Eleanor, is that rational? Yes, you can do it. Go do it. And he's just very like matter of fact. And he knows that I get nervous with some things and he knows how to deal with that. I think it's so important to have people around you at work that are your biggest cheerleaders. My boss's boss is an exceptionally strong female, and she's the same. She will put me forward for absolutely everything. And I get a bit like, oh no, are you sure? She's like, just do it. You'll be amazing. Doesn't even take the no. So I think as long as you've got good people surrounding you in the office and at home, I think it really does help with the kind of imposter syndrome that we all get.
Yeah, no, definitely. And what would you say is your biggest achievement in your career so far?
Just being here today and no one finding out that I'm clueless. I'm joking. That's my biggest my biggest achievement, I think, is now that I'm considered at work a subject matter expert, and I have very senior, I spoke about it earlier, senior colleagues coming to me and saying, I need you on this pitch. Like, I've chosen you out of the 17 portfolio managers. You're going to be really good for this client. Or a client's, when you're pitching, they never really request for you, but if you kind of stand in at a meeting and they're like, oh, I really like her, could she be my manager? Just being someone everyone turns to, I think, and knowing that you're good at your niche. A lot of my clients are females, which is great. My team are mostly men, so they naturally have fallen to me. A lot of them require, they're recently divorced, for example, and they require a lot of education on their investment portfolios, what's happening. And I love that. I love being that person that's, oh, Eleanor will be really good for this client. Let's put her in front of them. So I think just becoming someone that people turn to. And it feels so good when you have someone that's been in the industry for 30 years call you up and ask a question, to be like, oh, I knew you'd know this. I just need to ask you this. And you're like, yes, I do know that.
Yeah, no, amazing. And if you could give one piece of advice to someone starting out in their career in finance right now, what would it be?
Just say yes.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Totally agree. Doesn't need any more words than that.
No.
Amazing. So we are coming to an end, but I would love to ask you for a book or podcast recommendation if you've got something for us.
Yes, of course. So obviously podcasts will be yours.
Thank you.
Because I love it. I think you're doing such a great job. Book. The lady that runs Vestpod wrote a book called You're Not Broke, You're Pre-Rich. And for a beginning money management book that covers everything, and you just want to find out what everything is in money management, she's written it so well. It's so accessible. You don't need a background in finance to understand it. She explains absolutely everything. And I think everybody should be given this book at school. And I think we would have a lot less issues in the world if everyone read it.
Yeah, I totally agree. And like you said, even people that work in finance sometimes have no idea about other things in the world of finance, that you can work in finance and still not know what a pension is. Like, that's totally normal. So this book would tell you all these things.
Yeah, definitely. And also, I think probably my last point would be, don't be afraid to ask for help when it comes to your money. I think there's a huge kind of predisposition that financial advice or a financial coach is for people with £1 million plus. It's a lot more accessible these days. There's even apps that can do the kind of robo advice for you. So you're never too small to seek advice with your money. And if you're too scared to go to a professional, ask a friend, and then you can kind of work through it together and go to a professional that way. But always ask for help with money if you need
100%. And I always used to say that like if you've got a group of friends, I guarantee there's always, like if you're say in debt and you're worried, I guarantee there's always someone else that is either got some debt themselves, their mum has, their best friend has, they've had it, they've paid it off. Like most of us have been in this situation at some point, and if we don't, someone very close to us has.
100%. Fully agree.
Amazing. Thank you so much for coming on. It has been amazing. You've been a brilliant guest.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed the episode, please do subscribe, rate and review, and we will see you next week.
Thanks, Chanelle. To catch all episodes in the Her Future Bright series, make sure you subscribe to the Money Marketing Podcast. You can find us on Apple, Spotify, Podbean, and directly from moneymarketing.co.uk. Whether you've been an advisor for decades or if you're looking to start your journey, you'll find plenty of useful content on our website. To ensure you never miss out, sign up to our newsletters, register for our magazine, and give us a like or follow on Twitter and LinkedIn. We also hope to see you at one of our events later in the year. Until next time, goodbye.